got mail.
All right, we'll wait for them to come back in a second. Hello, everyone. I know we did change the time really quick, so we'll give a minute for you guys to be able to come back. We do apologize for that. So we'll just wait a few minutes to get you back. There it goes, Can.
I know.
I wonder why it's not staying up for you.
I don't know.
We'll give them a few minutes to come on back. Is it working for you now?
Is what working?
The
Oh, let me do
you
this.
have to do it every time, the photo?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna mute the mic and give up. There we go. Hello. Sorry about the time, guys. Do apologize. We were getting through this case late this evening, and we literally scheduled it to go live. And after we read some details, we both had to take a moment and think, well, maybe we should do this tomorrow. And then I said, no, we should do a little bit today. It is really troubling going through and reading and watching the video on Shane Kendall. This is in Fulton County Jail on Rice Street. And there is a lot to unpack with this young man. I do want to start off by sending my condolences to family, friends, the lawyers that are handling the case. I am pretty sure this has affected them in a way, because we read through it this evening and we were affected. We actually changed the time of the live and then decided to come back just because of the things that we seen on there. And 15 years old, put into the system based off of an accident from the adoptive mother, or stepmother, that had left a firearm out, and he was able to get it. And unfortunately, it ended in tragedy. The heartbreaking part about this child He has several disorders, autistic, bipolar disorder, ADHD, schizophrenia, intellectual impairment, and he was also birthed with crack cocaine in his system. So all of these diagnoses that we have for this young man, I say kid, is what they had on there, is what the in quotation that they had on their big boy jail, is what they called it. We had reviewed the video of when he was found and when everyone arrived and responded. And let me tell you, there was no urgency. There was not urgency in there. Looks like around 10 a.m., they went to the cell. Looks like the PA, it's a white person in a white coat. It's usually only physicians and physician assistants that are in the white coats. Arrived at 6:22. Looks like paramedics arrived at 6:36, and they were already done at 6:50. So very, very short amount of time. Hi, Simply Tot. I'm sorry we changed the time, and Mel, I apologize. I apologize for that, but it was a lot to unpack with this and with the gentleman. Are you guys familiar with this case? So on here, just to go over a little bit, there is a lawsuit that is pending. At 15, Shane Kendall was charged as an adult with murder before he turned 19 and died in the jail. During the last days of his life, it was on Rice Street. And as in his words in quotation, big boy jail. They had actually had to train him to have courtroom etiquette, basically. And they trained him with cookies. For this young man. Hi, Pamela. Yes, it is the same prosecutor that we are seeing on the YSL trial. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a background. And says during the last years of his life, Shane Kendall was an autistic teenager. Keep in mind, it's just not autistic. It's the bipolar disorder, the ADHD, the schizophrenia, the intellectual impairment. And he was also birthed with crack cocaine in his system. And he was locked up inside of Fulton, is what the parents told the appeal, that when he turned 18, he was sent to an adult unit, is what he called the big boy jail. And around January 31st, roughly a month before his 19th birthday, officers found Shane curled up in a ball on the floor of his cell, according to a wrongful death suit, is what it says on there. It says the suit alleges that Shane asked to be placed in a different cell, but when the officers denied Shane's request, he assaulted his cellmate, who later reported, stated that he, wanted to get out of the cell. I did see he had a phobia for small spaces. It would make him shut down and ball up. They did let Shane know that he would be facing 48 days of disciplinary lockdown, essentially 24 hours a day solitary confinement. The next morning, he was found unresponsive from what they said, a parent suicide attempt. It says attempt. Attempt means that it didn't go through. So that should have probably been reworded or reworded differently. The jail medical providers are employed by a company, NAFCare, and they failed to render life-saving care and neglected his medical needs throughout his incarceration, is what the lawsuit had claimed. The suit named NAFCare two medical providers, sheriff office employees, Fulton County, and Sheriff Labatt as defendants in the case. When the nurse arrived to the cell, she refused to perform CPR, stating she had a bad knee. According to the officer reports, with one officer noting that he was alarmed by the nurse's refusal. The physician assistant, who arrived more than 10 minutes after staff discovered Shane's body, was described as disoriented in one supervisor's report. Unlike the nurse, he brought an AED and it came back no shock recommended. So that means enough time had lapsed where there was no current that was left within his system. NAVCare has faced similar accusations of neglect from incarcerated patients and their loved ones. In the past 5 years, this company's been sued more than 300 times in federal court. Despite all the ongoing controversy surrounding the company, the commissioner's office says on here, despite ongoing controversy surrounding for nonprofit company, Fulton County commissioners on November 15th voted to renew NAFCARE's contract through the end of 2024. From January 1st through December 31st, 2024, Fulton County will pay NAFCARE more than $33 million. The county also recognized the NAFCARE team of healthcare heroes for going above and beyond to save lives during a serious incident at the jail. Says Fulton County Chairman Pitt said in a press release posted on NAFCARE's website. The medical providers were awarded the Fulton County Chairman's Award for Outstanding Endeavors for the benefit of Fulton County citizens. In the court filings, NAFCARE has denied all wrongdoing in Shane's case and asked for the court to dismiss the complaint. The sheriff and county also filed motions to dismiss. The court has yet ruled on those motions. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office, who operates the jail, told the appeal in an email that it does not comment on pending litigation and would not say if the medical providers were still employed at the jail. The Office of the Fulton County Attorney emailed that the municipality had no comment in response to questions sent by the appeal. NAFCARE did not respond for a request of comments either. So it says Shane's parents hope that the lawsuit will protect others in the jail. Think of how many, people are in there that have the same problem. They are represented by attorneys and they have all of, his conditions listed. And they're stating, they were negligent in his care and how it was handled. It said they told the court during Shane's first competency hearing that he was hallucinating during one of their initial meetings, and that in one of the attorney's 40-year career had only raised clients' competency issues only in 3 cases. Said it was reported to medical staff that he experienced visual hallucinations when in closed spaces. So can you imagine being in the jail and having being in closed spaces? That's obviously a trigger. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever dealt with autistic children, bipolar children, ADHD children, schizophrenia children, or if they have an intellectual impairment or maybe born with crack cocaine. We know that these are triggers. And that can really, really throw someone off, and especially if it's noted and it's in the file. And it said they had never expected him to be able to live independently. Since he was a kid, he had received tons of therapeutic services since a toddler. He had just a list of mental health diagnoses, and everything has been documented since the day he had entered this world. At less than a week old, he was placed into foster care. So that just gives you just like a little look inside of his young life and how hard that is. And also having to go through that whole process. Shane allegedly picked up a loaded gun left out at his adopted mother's house. She and the adoptive father, or Joe, the father, had split up years earlier, and he fatally shot her. He did not receive his medication when he stayed at the mother's house, according to the father. Despite the well-documented history of psychiatric and developmental disabilities, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office charged him as an adult with murder and other offenses. Says the attorney begged and pleaded with the prosecutors to agree to have him placed in a psychiatric hospital. It's very apparent that his conditions needed a hospital setting versus a jail setting, very evident with the history. And what she had reported was they fought her every step of the way. At his first competency hearing, District Attorney Adrian Love accused the attorney and Shane's father about lying about his disabilities, which prompted the attorney to file a motion to the court to find Mrs. Love in contempt, that the accusations were completely unethical. So to think about that for a minute, obviously, hi, Bama. Hello, 321. Yes, 321, it is the case. It is the case with the young gentleman that had passed. During Mrs. Love closing arguments at Shane's first competency hearing, Love said that Shane's legal team was trying to get you to feel sorry for Shane Kendall. He had all of these problems, Love said. I'm not saying he hasn't had a hard life. I'm saying that he's competent to stand trial, and that hasn't been proven otherwise. She told the jury that the medical history and diagnoses were irrelevant in proving whether or not he was competent to stand trial, that he was only at the psychiatric facility because his parents had lobbied to keep him there, and the state hasn't objected. 2018 court order that sent Shane to the facility states that a psychiatrist found Shane competent. Both counsel for the defendant and counsel for the state agreed that defendant should be transferred to the facility for psychiatric treatment to see whether restoration or competency can occur. At the end of Love's closing, she said she would like to add a little bit of levity into the proceedings and told the jury she liked cartoons and comic books. And then she played an expert from one of the Spider-Man movies in an apparent attempt to underscore her argument that Shane was malingering. So basically, overplaying the diagnoses is basically what that means. It states that his attorney did not do the same thing, that they were boiling with anger and frustration is what they told the jury. How low are we going to go? And the state is willing to go pretty low. The state's default position has been to win at all costs, to ignore ethics and morality. The hearing ended in a hung jury. Kaufman said that she hoped that prosecutors would change course and not retry the case. Instead, took Shane to trial again. This time, the jury found him competent to stand trial. Kane, that is the one of the attorneys, said that he warned Love that that would happen if he went to jail. I told Adrienne, I told her, this guy is not going to make it. He said he will not live. He said, and damned if I wasn't right. If he goes to jail, I said something will happen. Shane's case breaks my heart every day, Kane said. I wake up with it in middle of the night. Love, who stayed in the prosecutor's office after Fonnie Willis defeated Howard in 2020, is now the chief deputy district attorney for high-profile cases and difficult witness division. She did not respond to any requests for comment. It also states that after psychiatrists found Shane incompetent, the court sent him to an inpatient program that attempts to make children ready to stand trial after they've been deemed unfit. It says, according to the program records, staff provided Shane with a crash course in courtroom procedures. One staff member testified at the first competency hearing that Shane and the other clients did crossword puzzles, word searches, coloring books, and a game called competency football, where they tossed a football as they were quizzed on different vocabulary words. It says Kaufman told the jury that the program was akin to obedience training. The staff treated Shane like a dog and gave him cookies when he answered questions correctly. Says by the time he completed the program, he was 17 years old. The court then sent him to the Fulton County Jail, where he stayed until his death. As of last month, 21 17-year-olds were detained at the jail. Kids. His medical records show that NAFCARE staff were aware of his diagnoses, and his stay at the psychiatric facility. However, the workers still placed him in general population. According to the housing assignment form completed by a registered nurse at the jail, they did not assign, it said NAFCARE claims their staff did not assign Shane to general population housing. There is no such evidence that he was not fit for, there was so much evidence that he was not fit for that jail. Says on, said they feared for their son's safety and for good reason. Other detainees physically assaulted and bullied Shane because of his perceived sexual orientation. So not only did he have these diagnoses, he also had to deal with abuse, not just in a physical form. Said Joe said his son never went to the exercise yard because he was afraid. Not a breath of fresh air, no sunlight. While at the jail, Shane lost a significant amount of weight, even though he was on psychiatric medications that typically cause weight gain. According to the complaint, his health records from the jail shows he lost 57 pounds in less than a year. But mental health clinicians rarely mentioned his weight loss in the notes. So everyone knows if it's not charted and documented, it wasn't addressed. That is the rule of thumb, the first thing in medical. If it's not there, it didn't happen. If you did not chart it, it did not happen. Whether it happened or it didn't happen, if it's not charted, legally, you cannot say that it happened. The jail's meals couldn't sustain him. Shane had told her that breakfast was delivered at about 1 a.m. and shoved under the door. By the time he went to eat it, he said bugs had crawled into his food. His parents said that they bought him as much as they could from the commissary, but he kept losing weight. They were worried that other detainees were pressuring him to give them his food that he was getting from, obviously, the commissary. At every turn, they failed to keep him safe. Said Joe, who suspects his son may not have died by suicide. Guards say Shane was found with a ligature around his neck, but at the first competency hearing, that was at 15 years old, the last time Shane was free, the state of Georgia had paid for an occupational therapist to teach Shane how to tie his shoes and how to complete other tasks, such as brushing his teeth and bathing. He was in grave danger every single second when he was in that jail. Can you imagine a young adult at that age that has to be taught how to go shower with grown men? He has no type of defense around him. All of these diagnoses and disorders that he's lived with since birth. Trained to sit in the court with cookies. Sorry, guys, if I'm pausing a little bit. I literally have my eyes, like tears in my eyes as I'm going through this. It is really, really deep. Says medical records also reveal that he repeatedly refused his mental health medication, was physically assaulted by another detainee on several occasions, wore dirty uniforms, and appeared unkept. So that's concerning. If he's not taking the medication, he should have been sent out because, for one, there could have been something going on. His levels could have been apparently way off. That is like the first sign you need to send him out and need to get a workup. He stated, "I don't take a shower." He told one mental health professional, "I take a bird bath. I've seen things happen to people in the shower." Joe said he spoke to Shane the night before his body was found. He said, "I gotta go. I got into kind of emergency I have to take care of," and he hung up. Less than 12 hours later, he was pronounced dead. The jail's incident reports list a contradictory timeline for that morning and raises significant concern about the medical assistance or lack thereof. In their reports, officers provide different times from when Shane's body was discovered, ranging from about 6 a.m. to 6:10. Also varies from when they called medical assistance from 6:12 to 6:17. One officer said he called for medical aid after staff entered the cell, removed it from around his neck. They handcuffed him due to officer safety precautions, and then they began CPR. So before they could do CPR, they had to handcuff him for the officer's safety. So the officer, you're not in danger. He's unresponsive. There's no danger there. The medical providers' reports in brief, each less than 10 sentences. They say the officer called for medical assistance about 6:10, make no mention of their arrival times or whether the nurse or whether the nurse refused to perform CPR. Excuse me. My medical providers out there know that you document your arrival time, you document what you've had to administer, what type of treatment or aid that had to be rendered, and the time that you've parted. Those are basic one-on-one teachings of charting. Basic. I mean, very minimal, very minimal. You don't even need a skill set to be able to learn that part. Truly. Surveillance video captured the corridor outside Shane's cell that morning. 2 staff members appeared to discover his body about 6:10 a.m. According to the footage, over the next several minutes, staff members can be seen walking away and towards Shane's cell with no apparent sense of urgency. At about 6:20 a.m., a staff member wheels a stretcher towards the cell with another person walking several steps behind. About 2 minutes later, a person in a lab coat and a white coat was seen walking towards the cell. And mind you, the person in the lab coat is always like PA or the doctor, either the physician assistant or the doctor. I have never seen anyone in a white coat walk into a medical emergency, urgent scene and walk away and then walk back in and then walk away and then go back in. As a true physician assistant or doctor, you have seen way more immediately when you first walked in. You have to secure the scene and you have to have eyes on your patient. And the basic things that you're taught is you have to do the head to toe look. You have to check for the ABCs. And if the other staff had failed and the physician, the PA or the doctor had failed that, then who was supposed to take over at that point? There was also at about 6:20 a.m., a staff member wheels a stretcher towards the cell with another person walking several steps behind. 2 minutes later, about 6:36, the one in the white coat appears again to be the emergency worker towards the cell. 13 minutes later, he was pronounced dead. NAFCARE had been accused of providing dangerously inadequate care to other detainees in Fulton County in August. A man detained at the jail sued NAFCARE and Labatt and others. When he first arrived at the jail in May of 2023, he spent about 3 days in a holding cell covered with urine and feces with about 30 other detainees. He alleged that when he was then placed with the general population instead of in the alternative lifestyle dorm, where after he disclosed to officers that he was gay. While in the general population wing, a detainee sexually assaulted him and he was extorted for commissary items, according to his handwritten complaint. He alleged that food is often served half-cooked, raw, and always cold. Locks on the door are broken, and there's a bed bug infestation, is what was reported in September. On the medical side, he said that he went to wait a month before receiving his HIV medications, that even after 3 months at the jail, he had not yet received all his mental health medications. Mind you, this is another detainee that had put this grievance forward. There was multiple grievances. He wrote, processes were in complete shams, waste of time. The man filed the lawsuit pro se, meaning he does not have an attorney. The federal magistrate judge recommended denying the plaintiff's request for appointed counsel and dismissing NAFCARE as a defendant because the complaint did not clearly state why their care had violated the law. In another case, a detained person named LaShawn Thompson did not receive his medications for schizophrenia for more than a month before his death at the jail in September of 2022. According to an independent autopsy commissioned by his family, photos of his filthy cell and bug-bitten body were released several months after his death, set off widespread and triggered the Department of Justice investigation into the jail. I do have those photos. At the time of the death, more than 90% of detainees in his unit were housed with people with mental illness who were malnourished. They had developed a wasting syndrome typically found in people with advanced stage cancer, according to the report by NAFCARE. The document also stated that most people in the unit had not received essential medications or completed activities of daily living, typically defined as showering, dressing, using the toilet, and eating. A few months after Thompson's death in December of 2022, a 29-year-old detainee told the jail's physician assistant, the same one named in Joe Kendall's suit, that he had not had a bowel movement in almost a month, and he was having trouble walking, according to the jail incident report. Out of respect for the privacy of the deceased family, the appeal is not going to name him. The physician assistant said he would give the man milk of magnesia and return him to his unit. While the man waited, he became increasingly disoriented, according to the incident report. An officer asked the medical provider to examine the man again. During the exam, the man lost consciousness and was taken to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead minutes after arriving. According to his autopsy report, the man died of complications of bowel disease, which causes reduced flow to the intestines. He was diagnosed with lower extremity cellulitis, a bacterial infection. That year, 15 detainees died, a five-fold increase over the previous year. So far, 10 detainees in the custody of the sheriff's office had died in addition. So that is just a little bit before we unwrap the entire lawsuit. How? Like how can you go into work there and see bodies ate all up from bed bugs? You see medical needs, you see people with true medical diagnoses can't receive their medication, can't receive anything.
I'm just going to say this real quick. Good evening, everyone. But in regards to the question how, it is more of a moral issue that the DA has. I must say Fawny as well as Love. And as we also heard in the article, that this young man was suffering mentally from childbirth and then going into the system at the age of 17 after unfortunately unaliving his mother because they were, and I don't want to say they were incompetent, but they knew that their child had mental disabilities and left a loaded gun on the table. And God bless the dead. But we have to make sure we do better as a community, as parents. We have to ensure that we have these safety locks on the guns. And then with the defense or the DA side, unfortunately, we just have to fight and make sure we have those in office that are ethical and they want to uphold the law and they want to fight. So they had to listen to the parents. If my child has all of these mental comorbidity that could land them in prison, we have to start with these psychiatric hospitals. A lot of these hospitals are being closed down because we see that there was 33.3 million that was given to NAFA, and they were already not doing what they were supposed to. And as we seen in the video, when the medical team came, the nurse, she said her knee was hurting. And then when the PA come, the officer said that the PA was disoriented. So who's going to help the children? Who's going to look out for them? Who's going to be their voice?
Absolutely. Well, you're supposed I'm just at a loss for words. I'm trying to get this video up here for you guys to see this sense of no urgency.
Right. And I also wanted to say with the cookie and the coloring, what they are doing is using the Sigmund Freud effect, the psychoanalysis theory. Yes, they're getting their doctor, their psychiatrist to do an assessment, but what are they really trying to do? They're just trying to push that person to the side because they have so many people that they have to assess on a daily basis anyway. So if I give them a cookie and I tell them, hey, behave like this, and I'm sure a lot of people remember the Sigmund Freud when they would have those mice go through the maze, just so we can analyze how well they can comprehend with the reward at the end. It doesn't mean they're understanding psychologically because you have to process that. They were just getting an award for doing a deed that was mimicked to them. So they're just mimicking it back. And that's unfortunate. I, I, it's just sad.
Just reading through it and just seeing, they treated this young man as if he was a dog in training. Okay, you're not competent the first round. We're going to bring you back again. And we're going to make you competent because we're going to work on bathing. We're going to work on tying your shoes. We're going to work on communication. We're going to work on these things to make you stand competent so I can come back and charge you. Yet in a case like this, and the stepmother is deceased. So, I do want to be respectful in that, but there was negligence there. She left a firearm out with a disabled child. Now, all of those diagnoses makes you eligible, obviously. Those are medical diagnoses that you are disabled. And he has a record that started at birth. So these diagnoses didn't come when this incident happened. So to even bring that to the surface and say that he has to stand trial for his actions, not that he was unmedicated and a gun was left out not secure. What child at that age, even a young child, is going to pick up something? Toy, see it, think it's a toy gun, pick it up, that's all it takes. It goes off and you're deceased. True accidents do happen. And when you're unmedicated and you already have all of these diagnoses, I just can't understand how you can make someone in this condition stand competent for trial and put him in a situation to where, I mean, even the officer, you felt your life was in danger, you needed to handcuff him first? What threat could he be? In the report, in the lawsuit, they said he was already cold to the touch. And if he's already cold to the touch, then their timeline at the jail is way off. Way, way off. And that is a whole nother problem. So just so you know, a little timetable of death and rigor mortis. When your body temperature is warm and you're still flexible, your time of death is under 2 hours. If you are warm and stiff, you're between 2 and 8 hours. If you are cold and stiff, you're between 8 and 36 hours. If you're cold and flexible, you are more than 36 hours deceased. And this is basic time of death calculator that every single ME, medical examiner, goes off of. So in the report for the lawsuit, because they are suing, it states in the one report that when one of the responding personnel walked in, said that he was already cold and they had walked back out. The autopsy report was pretty extensive. I'm going to show you guys the video here and see the urgency that they had for this young man. I'm going to show you right here.
Just to let you guys know, it doesn't have volume, so you just have to watch it.
Yeah, there is no volume on it. These are two other inmates that are out, looks like picking up garbage off the floor at 610. But it was kind of interesting that they were the only ones out and everybody else's doors were shut. I'm not sure what time that they open at, but it looks like they went and put themselves in once the officers came in. They're going to go all the way down to the end of the hall. You'll see right where that flashlight is going, walking down. That's where they're going. Right there. There it goes. You see someone hanging there unresponsive. Still standing there. Let me walk away and shine my flashlight a little bit more to see nothing. Here comes another personnel that's responding. There she goes. Moving so fast. Surprised she didn't pass out from running.
Well, the article did say her knee was hurting.
Yeah, she had a bad knee.
Yeah.
That didn't allow her to get on the floor to do CPR.
Yeah, she should have been off that day.
That day. should be off until that knee is fully recouped.
In jail. I agree.
Mm-hmm. No urgency. Oh, let me walk away to go get somebody. That's what the report says. Got to go get someone. Don't move too fast. You might pull a muscle. You're just walking in and out, in and out. As you can see on the outside of that cell right there, the one is just standing there the entire time. Oh, well, they're both going to stand out there together. Hoping that someone else is going to show up. The other worker who's went, according to the report, to go get someone, there goes the people with the stretcher. They're moving so fast. Doesn't look like any type of CPR would be in progress with this type of snail movements. Excuse me. Oh, there goes the white coat. It's not moved too fast. Everyone's been waiting for you to arrive. All right, you've arrived now. You're going in. Oh, yep. I took a peek. Yep, let me walk back out and get myself together again. Yep, I didn't. Okay, yep. Let me just stand here for a minute. Wait, let me go back and see if I seen that. Yep. Let me walk back out. I did see it. Oh man, this is my job. I better go back in. I got the white coat on, probably depending on me. So you seen that the staff had brought the stretcher, but you're going to see now the paramedics are going to arrive. And a few more officers, 7 more bodies. And you're going to see right here in a second, they're all done. They're going to will away. Nothing they can do. So those two officers came, confirmed, left. Jeez. So now that you have seen that, I don't know, to you guys, any urgency? Do you guys see any urgency? There was no urgency across the entire team, from the sheriffs to the medical personnel to the PA in the white coat. No one had urgency. I'm just going to ask you guys one question. Do you guys think CPR was administered? And at what time? There was two that arrived right there in the beginning, and you seen one stayed outside of that cell and one went in, out, in, out. Then when the other one came, she just kind of strolled really slow, and then she strolled away really slow. And then when they came, you seen even when the stretcher came, they went in and stayed out. I have never seen several emergency personnel handle an emergent situation.
And it's just so sad to say that this all could have been circumvented had they just put him into a psychiatric hospital. Because records indicated from toddler age till his time of passing that he had mental disabilities.
Yeah, and then not only that, what has my mind a little bit conflicted is how he had to end the phone call, that there was an emergency and that something was going on, he had to leave. Like, he had to get off the phone as if, like, something was happening. How do they know that someone didn't hang him?
Absolutely, because you can't attempt suicide and you're already unalived. You have
Yeah,
to make it
that's
make
what
sense.
the report stated he attempted, and I was so taken back by looking at that. What do you mean attempt? Attempt is I just couldn't even believe, like, what I was reading in the report and to see, the other ones, that have come forward to say. And there is, a couple photos that we have, of another one who is deceased, and his entire body was eaten up with bed bugs. You could see raised, fresh ones. You can see scarred ones that the pigment went darker from the scarring. You can see ones that were healing, and you could see some bites that looked infected. To where on the picture, you could see that the AED pads had a hard time adhering because the four corners of it was lifted off, so that lets you know that the surface is not good. Which, I mean, that's not even a debatable question because looking at it, He clearly is, and they did I believe it was like 123-page lawsuit. I'm gonna link it in, and you guys can read it at your own time. So when these things occurred, they said, okay, well, the DOJ has launched an investigation into this, but what about the other 10? And what about the other ones that have been adding up? So this is 2022, 2023, and 2024. When you have jails that are worse than actually being out in the streets, it's a true problem. You're safer outside on the streets than you are to go inside that jail. But it's no problem, but at what point does someone come forward to say that if we are responsible as citizens for any deaths that occur under our watch, if there's any type of evidence or any signs pointing that there was some type of neglect, you are arrested that day and you are handcuffed and you are charged. Why is it different that officials can keep you in these type of environments? You can die under their watch, and all it is a report. Why does why is there a blurred line or a line drawn to say we can do it but you can't? We can just write a report on it if you're on our watch and you pass away, but if you die on the other flip side, then somebody's going to jail. I just have to make it make sense for the people. How do you reason with what they have going on in there, and not to mention how many other people have suffered in there, because this is what you call suffering. There was one gentleman who had begged for help to his family via a letter and had asked for help, otherwise he was going to be killed. There was another one who stated that if someone did not come get him out of there, he was not going to make it, and he died that very next morning. So you look at all of these things, and this is just a little bit. We're going to cover the actual lawsuit tomorrow, and we just really went through and just like looked at different things in this case. Like I said, I was so troubled by going through it and reading it to see. There's also two different dates for his death, what I thought was interesting. One has January 31st and one has February 1st. And my understanding to that is it because of the temperature that was reported in the report, and you have to use basically that for time of death? Because one has January 31st and one has February 1st. So that is basically telling you, do they have it on camera how many rounds that they have done? When was the last time he actually had a wellness check? Does anyone know what time that jail down there opens their cell doors for the morning for everyone to come out to go in the day room? Does anyone know? Says not to get too political, but private prisons need to end. No, really, I mean, not too much oversight, right? I'm not sure if anyone knows what time they open, but I'm just curious because obviously something took place on third shift. And everyone knows that people sleep on jobs at third shift. I can tell you that when I was younger and I worked third shift, I used to have a coworker that every time I went to the floor was knocked out. And so we know that it happens. We know that, it's there, it's a possibility. But the real question is why is it okay to die under their watch? But if a citizen has anyone die under theirs, they have to go to prison. They have to get charged. So
I
you're
would say the real question is, why did love negate the fact that this young man had a mental disability from the beginning and not put him into a psychiatric hospital where he could have gotten the help that he deserved and needed? But then again, while at the jail, no one should go through any of those inhumane um, effects that they're going through now.
Yeah, and I mean that was I have the other one for you guys. So they said currently there are no solutions yet as the court system is still playing catch up from the COVID-19 shutdowns in regards to the 10 inmates that have died, um, is what they have on there. I'm looking at they have labeled it the most deadly jail. There are pictures of the jail. I'm going to share this picture with you guys here, give you guys a internal. I need you guys I need you guys to see this. All right, let me zoom out and go back in and show you guys this picture. All right, here it goes. I had to I had to hide the where I put it at. I didn't know where I had it. So that way they can see it. All right, let me share this really quick with you guys. That's the cell. Man, I just couldn't imagine. I couldn't even, I can't even imagine. You're better off on the street sleeping on the sidewalk. And this is no excuse for backlogs. This is no excuse for former DAs in seat. This is no excuse for previous sheriffs that have been in position. This is no excuse for any county official that is running that county jail. And it is in that condition. And that is just a little bit of the condition. I have another one here. I don't know if that one is going to be too graphic. Let me see. All right, let me put this up for you guys. All right. All right, here it goes. There's another one. Nothing to see there, it just leaks. Just overflows everywhere with feces. That is so crazy. Says, whose cell is that? Fulton County Jail cell. They have been uploading a lot of pictures that are on there that has a lot of conditions that they are in right now, and what it's looking like, and how bad it is in the conditions that a lot of people don't understand, that it's way worse. Oh, here is the other end of this picture. Here, let me show you guys this really quick. I had to snip this one. That's the other side of that picture to the one that we just seen. That's the other side of it. And then they have him draped, because obviously that's how they left him until, gotta come get picked up. This is where you send a disabled child to fend for themselves and have to figure it out. I'm going to show you guys this other one here. I don't know what are your guys's thoughts on on what has been going on in this case, and that you see the very same prosecutor that is on the YSL trial that is did not care, wanted that conviction and made sure that it was going to be had.
And politic, and I agree with you. That is exactly why people come out worse, because mentally they're broken.
Yeah. Well, how can you go in the courtroom and fight for your life? As we see in the YSL trial, they're in there day after day after day. Now it's been a couple years. And there's nothing wrong with this, but we keep throwing them into this. Into this. You don't go here to be disciplined. You go here to die. You don't go here to fight for your charges or you're innocent, you shouldn't be there, or any of that. Look at this. This is okay for any official. This is okay for even a physician that has to work in there. As a medical professional that is licensed, there are certain things that you have to adhere to keep medical licensures. You are mandated by the state to report abuse, unhealthy conditions, malnourishment, several skin diseases developing, open wounds from bites everywhere, contamination. They ooze, they drain. That's what they do.
And the faulty structure of the building. Who's safe?
Nobody wants to unwrap exactly how bad this is. These men and young disabled men, doesn't matter your age, you're disabled, your mental status, any of that. You just get thrown in there. Remember, there's a huge backlog that people aren't even charged yet. They've been sitting there, no bond, haven't seen a judge yet, and they sit in this. I literally have a gallery of photos, and I will link them for you guys if you guys want to see them. I just wanted to put some up there, and I really believe that they have truly lost sight of just humanity. Humanity at minimum. How can you walk in there to work every day? The sheriffs, the investigators that are there, the staff, the medical staff, they have to have bed bugs too. Everyone knows those spread like wildfire. Like the only way you can take care of that problem is literally you would have to put them in a separate place, not another jail. And you would literally have to get every inmate decontaminated and you need to bomb and exterminate the entire building. You can't do that with the inmates in there. So after you get them cleaned up properly and washed up and loaded up and make sure that they have something brand new on and don't allow anything from that facility, you basically got to hose them down and not take anything with you and send them to a clean facility that is up to state codes. That is not making regulation. I just want to know who is doing the regulations on that building, because that does not meet the standards and codes that we have to abide by. There's not an option. Because that walkthrough cannot be passed. There's no way. And then on the secondary part of that, once you do that, you have to address your building. If you could pay the neighboring county, Cobb County, over $11 million to house the inmates that can't fit no longer because it's already overcrowded. That's another resource going out. Cobb County's not going to care. It's helping their it's helping their community. Bet you love those taxes going to be lower. So it's the chain reaction. Who is doing the walkthrough? You have to have your building inspected. That's a state mandate. Who signed off that it is up to code? Has it been properly tested for lead? The mold in these photos, have they been tested, and do you know the proper mold that it is? Because depending on the type of mold, you may need to treat your entire facility. Because they could be ill and get gravely ill. Then you have to focus on repairs. You already got them out. They're treated. Get them a health workup. They need it. They've been in the slums. Everyone will tell you a lot of prisons are messed up. A lot of jails are messed up. They don't look like that. They do not look like that. And that is nowhere, no how acceptable anywhere. You have urine and feces in processing. Just the type of contamination that they are exposed to, mold, mildew. What condition are these young men and their lungs in? They're breathing this in on top of the bed bugs. Internally and externally. This is what they're living every single day. And then the complaints on the food and the pictures. It does look uncooked. It does look really bad. Your state law that you have certain standards to adhere to, nobody in the state of Georgia can bypass that. You have Georgia standards for adult pretrial detention facilities. You have a 215-page handbook that tells you what condition that jail has to be in. And it tells you every single department. So I just want to know, when's the last time county head officials have been in there, have done a walkthrough, and have seen this? Because if you have, you are part of the problem. This is the most inhumane thing that any animals wouldn't even live in there. And they, not saying they should, but they are way treated like stray, abused animals. There is nothing humane about this. Mel, those are facts. Russia's prisons are better. How does anyone still have a job, a seat? Your community is more dangerous because all your courtrooms are held up with cold cases that they're trying to figure out. Rape kits forfeited, the jail infested, mold, mildew, feces, urine, bed bugs. You have all that in the facility. How much of that reached the kitchen where you're prepping the food to feed them? That 215-page handbook tells you you're not allowed legally to do this. Every single official hire needs to see. And it's not just to reprimand you. You will be, everyone a part of that will be dealt with at some point of time in their career. But these young men need to have some help. They have to have some type of medical help. They have to be assessed. They have to see where their health is at. This is internal and external, and through ingestion because the food is prepped, which goes along with internal, but truly internal. I understand that the all these trials are a really big deal, but it is so important to understand the mental. You're already stressed out. You're in a place. Think of a disabled kid in this trying to figure it out, that got trained in the courtroom with cookies. So he learned how to have some etiquette. So that way he can stand trial. Couldn't get him the first time, hung jury, had to get him back, brought the charges right back. You got a hung jury, got dismissed, and you brought him right back. Because you just had to make sure you got that win, Miss. Not that I recommend he should be in a state facility and receive the treatments and work on a program that is going to help him mentally, physically, cognitively, everything to benefit him. Because he's well documented. He's had a lot of things, that diagnosis and health conditions that he had to deal with from the very first breath that he took into this world. He was born with his nervous system out of whack. Cocaine through his system. Not his fault. He didn't do the cocaine. It's a lot, people. It's a lot, and I need you guys to know what they're sitting in and where they're at. Don't think my message is every single person inside that jail is innocent, because that is not my plea. My plea is who is involved and who is doing the walkthroughs, and how can your handbook of 215 pages be disregarded when it's a law? You're mandated at minimum to keep them standards. And then you have to have the walkthroughs to make sure it's up to standard code and regulations, because you have to have that in order to stay open. That's not a if. Those are actual demands that they demand of you, because that is the law. So you don't have to uphold them if you have a badge. They don't apply. If you have a seat and you're sitting in a seat and you go home every night and it doesn't have no effect, then that's a whole different ballgame. You have kids in there that it says under 18. They got to figure that out. You know, their mother and father's home didn't look like that. It's not expected to be a hotel suite, but it cannot be like that. Legally, it can't be like that. These men need a workup. And that building needs a thorough extermination and bombing, and you cannot have the inmates in there when that is done. And you have to address that mold. And you have to address what types are in there, because as we see, there's different colors, and that means different types. That's true, Mel. You go to the Humane Society and they take dogs off the street, they clean them up, they do a health check, they address everything and put them in a clean cage, give them a clean, fresh new bowl, water. They're fed on a schedule. They get a diet to make sure it meets their nutritional needs of what stage of age they're at. They have the vet there that does regular health checkups. If they do just a Yelp, they're going to get checked out, a full report done. The kennels have to be cleaned so many times a day in order to stay regulated and get the funding. Capital letters. So how can you receive funding and it's not even up to code? I just want to know. How does a child that is autistic, bipolar, ADHD, schizophrenic, intellectual, I can't even say it now, impairment, crack cocaine at birth, go in there and fend? And he was cold to the touch, but it just happened somewhere. And you have an AED that says shock not advised. So yes, his heart could stop, but medical professionals know your heart can stop, but you still have an electrical current going through your system for a certain period of time. And when the AED says no shock advised, it's letting medical professionals know that that is no longer present, that everything is over. And that's basic one-on-one. The reports can't even be consistent if there is reports and some reports aren't there. And you have others that can walk around there that hadn't had a bowel movement in a month that could barely walk. How can you sit there as a correctional officer and see the deteriorating condition of the very people that you took oath and you were trained to serve and protect? How do you go in there and physically watch them with your eyes and go home at night and come back to see them in worse condition day after day after day? And then you see them dying. You're getting dead bodies out of the cells. Help me make it make sense. I just want to know who does your walkthroughs and who says this is okay, and that you are legally able to operate this jail in this manner. Atlanta, the largest place in Georgia. You have the most resources than the rest of the counties in Georgia because you're Atlanta. So you have the most money. Your hands touch way more than your neighboring counties do. Your jail, your housing authority, your courthouse, nowhere should be in need. But we're allowing people to die. We're allowing people to get ate by bed bugs. We're allowing these conditions. And we have people that are serving and protecting that is watching these conditions. Not to mention the amount of contraband that was seized after 6 months of no search being done. And that photo is a wow. And that was all over the place. If that is considered the most dangerous jail, a sweep every 6 months, everybody needs a shank. Because in a week, you could have 2 more made overnight if you stay up long enough. But then if you get caught with something to protect yourself, or you have too much of something because there's a limit on items that you can have as well, then you are in trouble. But there's no consequences on the other side of that. It's a chain reaction. But we can keep throwing them in there, whether you're disabled, whether you're mentally ill, they're going to make you stand competent. It's just too much. It's too much. So I'm asking to go back and read your 215 page handbook that tells you how you have to legally operate. and it's not an option. You have standards for adult pretrial detention facilities, jails, prisons. Your mental health facilities also has regulations. Everywhere that's funded is comes with regulations. Governor has to be aware. It's the biggest city in that state. So there's going to be communication. It's also housing that airport. You do better when you know better. And that's where the accountability. I will drop the pictures in the bottom. I am going to tomorrow, Candy and I are going to read the lawsuit for this young man, young kid, young adult. And it is longer. It's a lengthy lawsuit. It's like 121 or 123 pages or something or another. And it says everything on how he was handled from the very first time to the last time. I read a couple things today, but there is also so much more that go with that. But I just needed you guys to take a look inside of these conditions, and this is how it's okay. And somehow it's passed. Still funded. But we have to fight for humanity. We have to fight for the people. We are the people. We are the people. And nobody that has any heart, has any morals, ethics, any of that, that could see that day in, day out and not say anything and just keep showing because you're getting paid. Silence is guilty too. Just because you might not be directly in charge, you see it, you're a part of it. These men don't have protection from physical to mental to environmental to health to nothing. And that is where I'm going to end for tonight. We got on late. Like I said, I apologize for changing the time. But after we went through some things, it was very disturbing for this young kid. Very disturbing. So many other outcomes that could have worked for that child, and it's sad. He's lost his life. There is no redoing this. There is no redoing this. But when this is malicious, and it's about time that every piece comes out and you guys are able to see. You're the voters. You have the power to put them there and to take them out of there. The people seat them and unseat them. So just remember that, guys. We'll be back on tomorrow evening, and we're going to go ahead and open up that lawsuit, and I will post the file of the pictures. There's about 35 of them, and I'll drop them in with the lawsuit for you guys tomorrow evening. You guys have a good night. We thank you for being here again, and we look forward to doing part 2 tomorrow. As always, stay blessed, and remember, you are the people. And without you guys, they cannot sit there. Have a good night.